ever think to use snipe was against High Templars, and that's maybe to get them out in front after the EMPs went down so they wouldn't storm. So seeing that and knowing that creativity and that aura of we're still all learning because this game is still technically new compared to Brood War. The game's not even complete yet. We still have 2 more installments coming out. So it's a process. We're still in a process, and hopefully the pros will figure it out. And if they can't, then Blizzard knows they made a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of times with Blizzard, I second guess on what comes from them. Like, the pros are always going to make it work, right? Because they just have the mechanics to do it. It's kind of like what you see with PvP now. As like a Terran, you're just like, at my level on Platinum, it's like, fuck, I can't beat Protoss because they can just max their army before I can, and then they pump out 3-3 in like 2 minutes, and you're like, all right, well, what do I do? Do I get the army and lose late game, or do I go for upgrades and lose at any time up until late game, but then still lose late game? So I don't know. It's like, it's those moments where I'm like, I don't know what to do, and you have to sit there and wait for like a player to figure it out and then try and mimic it as best you can, but you can't because you don't have good enough mechanics. And
so how would you deal with Broodlords?
Make more ghosts, I guess. But the problem is like, okay, for me, I'd see Broodlords and I'd be like, all right, I need to make Vikings. But then he makes Corruptors, and then if he did any sort of upgrade on his ground unit, how do I switch from making 25 Vikings to mass
And he's got
Marines?
mutas, which are swifter than Vikings.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, they were saying they were trying to make the game maybe more playable for...
It's already playable for Zerg. How, like, they can make
not
like
Zerg, for everybody, for the Joes. Like, and I don't think that's a good thing. Like golf, right? Golf's fucking hard. It's a hard game, and they don't change golf to make it easier. Like, you got to learn, and everybody sucks. Period. Like, the top 1% can hit the ball like Tiger Woods. Well, not even. I mean, even those guys can't hit like Tiger Woods. But you see what I'm saying?
Nicholson
hard fucking game. It's a hard fucking game.
Yeah.
You know, they made putt-putt for people that want to go just have a casual game of putt-putt. Well, go play Dota. No, boy, I just defended Dota. Okay. No.
Oh,
bad analogy. Bad analogy, because I have mad respect for you.
Dota's fucking hard.
Yeah, I'm not, okay, but
we're
it doesn't take... But we're not going to get into that. But you know what I'm saying. It's a hard game,
Blizzard,
so I think...
Blizzard shouldn't coddle all of the...
Right.
Main players like, oh, this is not fair because I can't do it this way, and I clearly can't do it the way the pros can. It's like, bro, just get better at it. Clearly, if one person could do it and make a living from it, then clearly it's possible to do.
Right.
I feel like this just comes down to just Blizzard is looking at the game. They want it to be something it's not, because they keep wanting to try to make StarCraft 2 into a casual game, and it's just not.
Okay, like you cannot turn this game.
It's
into
absolutely not a casual game, which is why it's a successful esport. But you know, in Korea, but it's not a casual game, and no matter how many little tweaks you make for little bronzy out there. There's a fucking blog I wrote on Team Liquid about a guy who like worker rushed in like 500 Bronze League games and with a 50% win rate. Like, when you can do that, like, this game is not a casual game. You need to stop treating it like a casual game and balance it for the pros where it's supposed to be. I mean, as far as the snipe goes, I would have just, they said they wanted it so that you would need to manage your energy better. Okay, just make it cost more energy. Don't mess with the damage.
I agree with that, actually. That's
if you want to make it. If you want to make it a casual game, like, okay, you introduce someone that's brand new into StarCraft right now, didn't play Brood War, didn't touch Brood War, didn't touch, like, Age of Empires, has no RTS experience, maybe plays a few casual games, put them down. They start playing the game. How are they going to know the difference between 45 damage on a snipe and then 25 and 25, what they have right now? Like, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. They don't care.
So maybe they're not trying to coddle the Bronzies.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's... I think there's still... And maybe... it's deserved that there is still this kind of Terran dominance, and they just want to figure out... I mean, look at every single... I don't think there's been a single patch where a bunch of Terran stuff hasn't been nerfed. Every single patch, there's been a Terran nerf. I'm pretty sure it's like just about every... I mean, there's EMPs, there's the bunkers, there's the racks timing. There's every time they're just constantly bringing Terran back a little bit. And, I mean, what tournament is it now that has, like... a majority? Is it the round of
GSL.
8? Yeah, round of 8 has more Protoss than Terran for like the first time ever.
And the
So, I mean,
Protoss metagame's on the rise too. Like,
it is. People are
because
realizing.
here's what happens. Like here's what happens. They make a change, which we, meaning the community, are already figuring out ways to beat that before the change.
Exactly.
So once they make the change, it's like, well, fuck, we already got this figured out. It's going to be even easier, and that's why you see the trend swing, and you get these big swings in trends because, all of a sudden Protoss is hot again, and the culmination of all these changes. For Protoss for a while was a culmination of a bunch of changes to fix PvP, right? They were doing warp gate timing changes, unit changes out of the gateway, all kind of stuff. And they were like, wait a second, PvP's already evolved. And we're going back to NASL Season 1, people were getting creative to try to get out of 4-gate. But 4-gate, I think, is more of a mapping issue, too, a lot of the time. Like Tal'Darim, of course, without high ground. So there's a couple issues there. But you see what I'm saying? Like, they make these changes when the metagame's already almost caught up to them, and the changes are kind of worthless.
I mean, Tumba, you and I talked about this earlier. I really feel like they're making races too stylistic, and like Terrans, and a lot of Terrans are complaining about this right now.
What did you say? Say what you said then. What should determine the length of a game?
Basically, a lot of Terrans are complaining that they don't have any really viable Tier 3 units. We're basically stuck on our Tier 2 it's because our Tier 2 is so strong. Like, up until 15 minutes, Terran, I feel, is actually maybe even slightly too strong. But then, like, from 15 to 20 minutes, it's pretty even. And then after 20 minutes, it's just so hard to keep up. And now, without Ghost, you're going to need Vikings, really, to counter
But you made a statement, too, that was like, the length of the game shouldn't be determined by
your race, and that's exactly what's happening.
It should be determined by the play.
Right, and Zerg and Protoss both have kind of weaker... I mean, they both can't really do all that much in early game, except for specific, very all-in builds, right? If you're just talking standard, like, macro play, Terrans dominate that in the early game. They absolutely do. They have map control the entire time in pretty much every matchup for the most part. But then it comes, Tier 3 units comes, that the 200 Death Ball or Infest or Broodlord. Jeez, I mean, it's just so strong,
But then once you wipe them out, half your army's dead, and then they have another 200 max army on the go.
Right.
Oh, and if they're Protoss, they have Warp Prisms, so they're already in your base because he planted a pylon right behind them.
Right.
Can't do
and
that
they're not
Terran.
using supply to get over there. They don't have to bring their units there. They just fly their Warp Prism, and they can, they just have 2 Warp Prisms, and they can do a bunch of drop harass. I really feel like they're balancing races stylistically because I don't like fast games. Tumba, you always ask me, why don't you just 1-1-1 every fucking Protoss?
Yes.
I don't want to. I don't like that. I like longer games. And should I just switch to Zerg? I don't want to switch to Zerg. I want to be able to play a good late game. I mean, that being said, we're talking fairly minor, I guess, percentages, but I don't know, man. Do think...
Try doing like a 2-Rax or a 1-Rax expand against the Protoss and like... Compared to a 1-1-1, like
so hard.
Oh my god!
That's why you'll have most people below Diamond just 1-1-1,
right?
Because and that's only fulfilling, I think, for so long before somebody gets to where Simpatico's at. Like I don't care if I win or lose.
Well, no, I was convinced that if I do 2-Rax expand, I can win versus Protoss, and I've lost like every game. Like I did it for like 25 straight TVPs, and it's like
they just have to make Immortals. They just have to make Immortals and you're done.
Yeah,
they can one base Immortal you and you're done.
Yeah, it shuts it down.
Dude, there is a timing that I haven't seen ever make that was that popular, but I know it's a good... There, 8 minutes, 30 seconds, you can get, I think, 2 Immortals, a handful of Zealots and Stalkers, and the Terran just can't... If the Terran tries to expand, they're
even
dead.
with a 2-Rax expand, it
doesn't matter.
Deadly push.
Oh, no, you have to have 2 bunkers.
They can have bunkers up.
That's
they can have
with the Immortals.
If they swap out a Stalker for a Sentry, like it doesn't matter how many bunkers you have.
Yeah,
it's that deadly.
I can't believe I haven't seen more of the push. We saw it a lot in Masters, Grand Masters.
Well, like
tournaments we ran, but we never saw it on the pro level. We also saw Simpatico and I know when we were casting, I remember seeing Broodlords where this whole conversation started, and when players were starting to figure out Broodlords and Terran just having no counter, and me and Simpatico casting being like, me and Sleeper too, and being like, he's going to try to go Ghost to counter, that's what he has to do. Like, he has to rely on snipes at this point, because he already had Ghosts on the field in anticipation that the Broodlords were coming, so we saw that metagame shift. Now the Ghosts are going to be there, but you're going to have to make, what, more Ghosts? All right, so we've already been over all this.
Yep.
Didn't David
Um,
Kim or someone say like they want the game to like, in essence, revolve around build order wins or something like that?
He said they want that to be a fairly large part of the
Well,
game.
like that's
Yeah.
you're screwed
That's dumb.
automatically when that's said. Like,
Yeah.
He said
Why
that at
would you
BlizzCon.
want? I don't understand why. Like to me, build order wins takes a lot of fun out of casting a game and watching a
And
game
playing a game, to be
and
honest.
playing
playing.
it because
It's all about what read do you make in the first 3 minutes of the game, and then the game is already decided. So like imagine
Yeah,
if you're
no.
watching a football game, and it's like, okay, well, first team to score a touchdown wins. But then we play then we play for the rest of the 60 minutes.
it reminds me of football in PvP for SWOTOR. Like if you're tied up, whoever has the ball at the end wins. Like no, what? Who cares? Go to overtime. Make it a game.
Yeah.
Like what? I don't understand. So in
Well,
a lot
that's
of
StarCraft
regards,
in general, though. Like, if you lose an army, generally, I mean, especially like, up to maybe Diamond, a lot of Masters players will happen as well. It happens less because you commit a little bit less, but if you lose an army like fairly badly, that's game over. Like, so if you basically build up this army, you both clash, and that's game.
but here's the thing. There's one thing you're missing that I think is most important. Micro. And micro should be a determining factor. So if I don't want to build order win, I want the guy that micros better, that can macro his ass off.
StarCraft 2 units die too fast. It's too fast.
Regardless, I don't care what they do. There's also balance issues. But instead of taking the game to, hey, let's make this build order wins, let's take the game to, hey, if you scout well, you're rewarded, and if you don't, if you have kick-ass micro, there's a shot that you can get back in this thing. Because right now, it's like you said, it's nowhere near that. Like, none. Like,
I mean,
You know
see
what I
MKP, that's happened to him a ton of times, where he'll be on the back foot because of a misread, or he tried to go for a build order win, or something all in and it failed, and then just with his ridiculous micro, he'll still pull out into the
and
mid
those
game
are the
fine.
best games to cast and watch.
It's like
play.
It's like in Brood War, there was a time where Flash just went 14 CC. No matter what the matchup was, no matter what the map was, no matter who he was playing, he went 14 CC, and he could just do that because he had the ungodly micro in order to make it work. It's like if you are 10 times better than the person you're playing, you should be able to do that. Whereas in StarCraft 2, it's like, okay, you can do that if your micro is 10,000 times as good as the person that you're playing. Like that's the only way that you could possibly do that. Like, it's just bad.
Okay, so let's move on to the other change, the Phoenix, of course. It's a big change
Yeah.
for a big
No,
investment.
it's not.
Let's kick at the clutch first, actually. Well, you know what? Hang on, clutch. Let's put it to Grok first, and then I want to
Okay.
get clutch's thoughts
Yeah.
because I kind of
I want to hear Grok's thoughts.
He's fired
tip
up on
of the
this.
head and sigh. I want to hear
Yeah,
that.
I see the body language. So, okay, all right. So, go ahead, Grok. Go for it. What's your thoughts on the change?
It's not a big change, at least not for the next 2 months of metagame. Just because when you go Stargate, the only reason you go Stargate is to deny the third, and then you're saying then you have to add, which is really risky. Like if it works, great, but Zerg seemed
Which
to
it
figure
doesn't,
that
by
out.
the way. In the current
Right.
metagame, if you go air, and Robin and I talk about this all the time. We've been talking about this since Providence. Zerg have Protoss airplay figured out. Like early game Void Rays went out just after Columbus, and MC made him popular. They were great, and then MC went into a slump, and who predicted correctly that he would be bad? I did, Vindication, but that's not the point. Point is, airplay has, so I get what you're saying, Grok. Okay, continue. I agree thus far. So airplay is...
Well, I mean, there is, like Parting. If you watch the MLG qualifier, he did this great 3 Void Ray push,
Yeah.
which that
Still
works
risky.
reasonably well, but it's insanely risky. And then you're kind of forced into following up that with more Phoenixes, I guess. But if you, on top of all that risk, then say, okay, well now I'm going to tech up the Fleet Beacon, and meanwhile keep getting a ton of Phoenixes, just in case he gets Mutalisks, right? Like you're putting all this money into tech. Now maybe, you know, very end game where it's like, okay, well, I have Mothership and this huge Colossus Stalker Deathball push, then you'd already have the Fleet Beacon, but then you're not going to have Phoenixes. I mean, the only